Hello and welcome to part 2 of the Empires tutorial. So in this part, I'm going to show you the basics of displacements. And for this, we're going to go ahead and we're going to get rid of this skybox. So go ahead and click on the selection tool. Click on any part of the skybox and ensure that all of it is highlighted in red. And go ahead and press the delete key. Now for this, we're going to be replicating this block right here. And the reason we don't So basically, in Empires, you don't want to create a block that's really giant because 1, the texture can look quite stretched and repeated, and 2, that doesn't bode well for what we're about to do. So we're going to go ahead and we're going to revert that by pressing Ctrl Z, and we just have our nice little block right here. So what we want to do for our displacements is we want them to be kind of small, and then we just want to press, or just hold Shift and click on it, and then drag it. You'll notice now it creates like a second one. As long as you're holding Shift and you let go of left click, it will create a second one. So for this though, that is the basics of moving a block around and just creating duplicates. Only now we're going to get into displacements. So for this, we're going to click on the top. So click on the multi-textured texture tool. Click on the top only. We only want the top. We don't want the entire block. So you'll notice only the top is covered in red. And you're going to want to go over here to displacement. Go to create. And then you're going to want to use power 2 or power 3. Do not go beyond power 3 or it could cause your map to crash. And that is very bad and confusing, and it hurts when you get a map made fully and it crashes and you can't figure out why. So what we're going to do now is we're going to go ahead and we're just going to create multiple of these. Once again, using Shift and click. So you can see it's kind of growing. And as you can see, there is multiple of them. And we're just going to go ahead and we're just going to mimic it one more time. Actually, once more, I'm sorry. We need a decent size to work with, you know? So here we go. We have a decent sized map. It's not that big. A normal infantry map would probably be out here. But, you know, this works. It's just showing the basics. So now, we want to go ahead and we want to select everything. So with the selection tool, you can actually come in here and select over top of everything. And you'll see it selects everything. However, if we're working on displacements, we don't really want these. However, those will automatically deselect when we click on this texture tool. So when you click on this texture tool, you want to come in here and there'll be this displacement button, the same place where you created it. And here, there's paint geometry, paint alpha, invert alpha, remove faces, sculpt, sew, noise, subdivide, and destroy. Obviously, destroy will destroy the displacements. We do not want to do that, because I'm showing you how to make them. So for paint geometry though, this is the first tool to making your terrain look pretty natural, flowing. And here, you'll notice it says it will raise it by 5 at a radius of 15. You can mess with these files a bit, so go ahead and just left click and you'll see how quickly it raises and lowers it. So there's that. Now let's raise this to 200. You'll notice that the ball gets bigger and it looks kind of more, you'll notice that it looks more natural. And if you go even bigger, it'll look even more natural. Like just a slight hill. Yep, see? There you go. And you'll notice if you change this, it'll raise slower if it's 1. If it's 15, it'll go... It'll go super fast. So there is the basics of sculpting your displacements. And be careful also never to get these spawns stuck in the ground, because then your player cannot move and they'll get quite upset. I've had that happen quite a few times, and yeah, then everyone just screams bad map. It's funny, kind of. So here we go. So we'll make just a giant crater. How does that sound? So then there is also you can also change the axis at which they raise and lower at. So here we can bring it in, bring it out as well. You can do the z-axis, which just yeah, you can experiment with these. Those are usually used for when you have a displacement facing vertical instead of horizontal. You can also use smooth. It just smooths out the terrain. And that's basically the basics of paint geometry. It can take a while to learn, but it's pretty well worth it. This is really what makes maps look good, is the displacement work. And here we go. Then I'm going to teach you how to paint alpha. So here, if we click invert alpha, it uses the second texture that's on the material. So when you choose a texture, if it's split down the center right here and there's mud and there's grass on the other side, or there's concrete and then another concrete, that means there's a subtexture hidden underneath the base texture. So we're going to go ahead, select everything again, click on this, and now it's all mud. So here we go. We want some grass on there, right? So we're going to raise 2, and here's the different brushes. It's just different sizes, and here's the intensity at which it switches. So if you right click or left click brings it back to mud, right click brings it to grass. We can paint grass on here and make it seem kinda natural. Now usually for this, you'd put the mud around a river basin or something, and then you'd have the grass covering a forest next to it. So here we are. And there's some grass on the outer edges. There we go. And yeah, that's basically painting alpha and invert alpha. Now, another really simple feature that you're going to have to know is noise. So this basically just makes it have all these little random bumps and everything. So we're going to do a noise of 5 and then 10. There you go. Now you can notice it's all, actually we'll go a little bit more because that didn't really show. We'll go 30, 50. There you go. So it just creates all these little random bumps. You obviously don't want it this severe, but this is just to show you that it creates little bumps and makes it seem uneven. So when you usually create a bunch of displacements, if you do this, it can easily make the terrain uneven and flow a little bit more naturally. So what happens though if you're working on a displacement and you're like, oh, but I need another displacement? So you bring it over here, and then you're playing and uh-oh, you see this. There seems to be a glitch where they're not matching up. Well, luckily, Hammer includes a tool that easily allows you to fix this. Go ahead, click on the one displacement you just made, then Control click on this other displacement that you want it to line up with, and you're going to notice there's a lot of black space here. And as I told you in the previous tutorial, that's bad. That creates errors in Hammer and generally makes the map not compile correctly. So for this, go to Texture Tool Application, come over here to the displacement, and click Sew. This will patch it up, and it'll make the textures kind of match. However, again, you're going to notice here and here, now they're not matching up. So if we go here and here, sew those up, now everything is matching, and it should work out all right. So there is the basics of displacements. You can go ahead and actually do some amazing work with the displacements. I'll include this little map in the link in the description. Although we do want to put a skybox around it, so we're going to go ahead and do that again. And just raise that up. Right click on it, click Make Hollow, -16. Click on it again. Go to Sky. There it is. Click on it, and then just drag it around the map. There we are. There you are. You have your first map. Oop. Since this is down below, on the 2D views, the displacements don't actually show that they shrink. So you're going to have to make sure that any displacements you do that are like giant craters like this, the skybox actually is not touching. So, for example, it goes all the way down. Otherwise, it'll appear that there's a hole in the ground. I'll show you later on how to make it so that way you don't have to do that. Really, the skybox only has to be touching the displacement. It doesn't have to go all the way underneath, but that'll be for another tutorial. This is just a basics at the moment. So we're going to go ahead, we're going to click Save As. We're going to save this as Hammer tutorial number 2. Going to go ahead, compile it, just real quick. Go to play, and we'll just try it out real quick. go to create server. I'm sorry if it's a little bit laggy, by the way. I don't know why it would be, but shit happens. And here we are. Here is the displacement work. You can see it in game. You can see this general hill. Ooh, there appeared some little funky work in the displacement. That generally doesn't happen. That only occurred in the noise, though, and me when I did it on the Y plane. But here's the map. You can spawn in and just run around. I'll include this in the linked in the description, and I hope you guys have some happy mapping. So just to cover what we did some basic displacement work. We created a displacement. We multiplied the displacements. We raised and lowered the displacements. We changed the texture of the displacement. We painted the displacement, and we learned to sew the displacement. So again, I hope you have fun mapping, and now you know how to make the basics of terrain, and that is 99% of what maps are. Thank you very much for watching, and I hope you watch the next one.